In this video, I'd like to talk about the idea of a limiting sum. And the idea behind a limiting sum comes from a geometric series like this one. Okay, this is a geometric series that's reducing in its values. Okay, so our first term there is 16. Our common ratio, taken by picking a term and dividing by the previous one, 8 divided by 16, that's a half. And if we are to continue this pattern, okay, continue multiplying by a half each time, then the terms are going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And these terms are getting really tiny. And the question is, how small can they actually get? Well, we kind of know that they can always get smaller, but will the terms get so small that they actually won't make much of a difference on the overall sum up to a certain point? So to illustrate this, I've actually put this series into a spreadsheet. Up here I'm able to specify what the first term is, so the first term of our sequence was 16. The common ratio is a half, or 0.5, and this column here tells us what numbered term we're looking at. So the first term is 16, the second term is 8, and so on. Okay, the term is written in this column, and we can see the way it just drops off. 16, 8, 4, 2, 1 half, quarter, 1/8, 1/16, and so on. This is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And what I've done here is I've got a column that's adding up the sum to n terms. So this number here, this 24, is gotten by taking 8 plus 16. If I found the next one, it would do 4 plus 24 to give me 28, and so on. If I keep calculating that, okay, so the 16 represents just 16, 24 represents 16 plus 8, the 28 representing all of these ones added together, and so on. So sum to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on terms. If you notice the number in this column, it doesn't seem to be getting above 32. Okay, the decimals are getting closer, but the number here, it's 31 point something. So the question is, what happens if I keep continuing this pattern down my spreadsheet? So let's go the sum to, say, 30 terms. Is that going to do 30 for me? Probably need a few more. One more. Okay, so this is the sum to 30 terms. Now this E that you see here, E to the minus 5, that's just a way of representing a very small number. The minus 5 is telling you move that decimal point, okay, 5 places in this direction. Okay, so this would be 0.000061, and so on. So these numbers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The bigger this negative gets, the smaller the numbers are getting. The one we're interested in is this sum to n terms column, and you'll notice that it's looking incredibly close to 32, but still not there. Even though I've added up another 20 terms, I'm still not up to 32. Okay, let's try a bit further on. Okay, now initially this looks like it's gotten to 32 at last, but in fact if we increase the number of decimal places, I'll make that a bit wider so it fits, you can actually see that the rounding was all that was taking it to 32. It's actually still not there. And this is the idea, the mathematical idea behind a limiting sum. Okay, so in this particular case we find that the series will indeed get closer and closer and closer and closer to 32, but it will never actually get there. Okay, it'll always be a little bit short. And so what we say is, okay, this series has a limiting sum. Okay, so in other words, if you take the sum to 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 terms, you'll get closer and closer and closer and closer to 32, but you'll never quite get there. Okay, and that's of more interest to us than what the particular sum is. Okay, this number here, we're not really that interested in what the particular number is. We're interested in the fact that it gets close to 32. So the way that we denote a limiting sum is we use the S for sum, but instead of an N down the bottom, we actually use an infinity sign to say that the closer you get to infinity, the bigger you go, the closer we get to this limiting sum. Okay, so in this particular case, the limiting sum is equal to 32. In the next video, we're going to look at a formula for how to actually find that number without having to inspect it like this with a spreadsheet. So that's the idea behind a limiting sum.